Hey 7th grade, welcome to plants. So this first video is going to be about what plants are and about the first major category of plants that we're going to talk about. So starting with what we already know about plants, we know that plants are things that produce their own food. That's pretty much what we know. Plants also fall into the category of eukaryotic organisms. So their cells are all eukaryotic, meaning they're not really simple, they're very complex. They have two special cell parts, actually three, but two major ones. The two major cell parts that are different in plants is the cell wall and chloroplasts. Cell walls are what give their cells structure and firmness so that they can stand up straight without any bones or anything to hold them that way. Chloroplasts, their job is doing photosynthesis, so doing the thing that keeps plants alive, which is soaking up sunlight and turning it into food. That's why all plants are known as producers. Producers are things in the wilderness or out in nature that make their own food. They don't have to eat anything else. They just need sunlight to survive. So plants are eukaryotic organisms with more than one cell. So far we've covered stuff that's like mostly single-celled, except for fungi. Those were multiple cells. But this is our first true multicellular organism. A multicellular organism has a couple things that it has to overcome. So when you're a single cell, you don't have to worry very much about like moving things around inside of you because all you are is one cell. So if things make it inside, they're good. But in something like an animal or a plant, if the roots, say the roots of a plant, soak up some nutrients, how do those nutrients get to everywhere else? They have to cover a lot of ground. They have to move among a lot of cells. And cells need food a lot. Like if your cells go without oxygen for only a few minutes, they will die. So how do they make sure that all their cells are getting what they need? They do it with things called vascular tubes, which are these cells that look almost like pipes or tubes that run throughout the whole length of the plant, from its roots all the way up to its leaves. Their purpose is to carry water and nutrients and sugar throughout the whole plant, so that not just the roots can soak up nutrients, but the whole plant will get the nutrients. So let's take, for example, this guy back here. If its roots soak up some sort of nutrients or fertilizer from the soil, the vascular tubes will transport that all the way up the plant to its leaves, which are up at the top. That keeps the leaves alive, but the leaves also produce sugar that then gets transported back down the plant's stalk to its roots, so the roots can have enough food to still live and survive. So because of those transport tubes, the entire plant can live and grow and be happy. So in the world of plants, there are some plants who have these tubes, but there are actually some that don't have them. Why is that? Scientists group plants according to whether or not they have vascular tubes, and they group them according to whether or not they have seeds. So the first group of plants we're going to look at today are the seedless plants. And there are some seedless plants that actually don't have vascular tubes either. Let's take a look at some of those. So what you're seeing here is a moss, which is a member of the non-vascular seedless plants. This type of a plant uses spores to reproduce, and it does not have vascular tubes, which means it can't transport its nutrients and water very far at all. Which is why mosses, if you've seen them in the woods or around your own house, they're always really short. They have to be low and close to the ground. Otherwise, the very top of them will thirst to death because it can't get enough water up through the plant. Also, these plants don't use seeds, they use spores to reproduce, which are a little different from how seeds work. Seeds are produced sexually, whereas spores are produced asexually and have a little bit of a different structure to them. The other type of plants that are part of the seedless category are the vascular seedless plants. Vascular seedless plants can get a little taller than mosses, but they're still not as tall as the seed plants can get. Okay, what plants would go in this category? There are plants like this, which you're seeing right now, which is the ferns. Ferns are all part of the seedless vascular plant category. Some other things would be club mosses and horsetails and other types of plants like that. These guys all share in common, all the seedless plants share in common that they only use spores to reproduce. What they don't share in common though is whether or not they have those vascular tubes. That's the big difference between the two of them. And it causes them to be very different in height as well. Short plants, non-vascular plants can only be very short, whereas vascular plants are always a little bit taller than they are.